The truth of the matter is that losing someone doesn't hurt because you're weak. It hurts because you're actually strong. It hurts because there was something in you that thought that this thing would work. There's something in you that envisioned every part of this, and your brain hates losing. Your brain hates when things aren't in the proper order. So what it does is that it begins to do all these things in efforts to try to get you to do something else, despite what's right, despite what's good for you, despite what you should know or do. All those things your brain is going to go against, because it's not your fault that your body wants something that it believed that it was supposed to have. This storyline that it was created, this future, this whole narrative that your brain had, it now needs to rewire and remove. So when we lose people, whether romantic partners or even grief itself, when we go through these things, our brain now has to do something that it doesn't want to do. It needs to change. It needs to adapt and accept other things. And that's probably one of the hardest things you will ever do.
This is Made for This Mountain with Josh Rosa, where we're turning pain into purpose.
One of the worst pieces of advice or things that people say to other people is that time heals all. Like, there's a reality to it. I don't want to diminish that, because time does heal things, but it doesn't necessarily heal it the way that most people think. Like grief, let's take that for example, before we dive into heartbreak and all those things that we struggle with, because even this grief is a part of that. But grief itself is something that is perceived and seen without us realizing it. Like, we'll grow through things that we're going through, and we'll see the grief in losing who we used to be, or losing the people in our lives, or losing certain aspects that we already envisioned that would grow with. And we have to grieve this potential person that didn't exist. We have to grieve these people that we saw a future with that are gone. We have to grieve the love and connection that we had for someone else. I heard it quoted once that someone said that grief is like glitter. Like, you might get the big bunches of it, but from time to time, you'll find random little sparkles in places. And you'll never be able to fully get rid of it. They're still going to exist in different areas and different places, but how you perceive grief changes. How you see those things is reinvented. And this mountain of grief, this mountain of getting over someone you once loved, and I get it, romantic is like the big push. And actually, this comes from a conversation that someone had with me about getting over someone. And those things are important to understand, to take, but we also need to realize that there is a bigger proponent with grief in everything, because grief is not just the romantic relationship. Yes, you will grieve that person, you will grieve that future, you will grieve the kids that you would have had, you'll grieve the vacations and the trip and the home and all these places. But the reality of grief is that it transcends all of that. And again, Dominican, so in our culture, one of the big things that we do is that we don't address grief. Like, it's not something that we unpack. It's, tú eres un hombre, eso no se hace. You're a man, you don't speak, you don't cry. You need to accept and grow and all those things. And what happens in unfortunately, in depth in that culture, in our culture, especially the Dominican culture at least, is that we never allow ourselves to actually feel. Like, we never go through the process of grief properly. And it's interesting to see how that plays out in everything else. Because when you don't allow yourself to have that grief, to grieve something, you don't allow your emotions to actually be free. Like, a lot of people think that suppressing heartbreak or suppressing anger or suppressing grief is actually stopping it from existing, but it's not. You're actually creating a different monster. You're creating something that doesn't allow you to be the best version of you, the happiest or the most purposeful version of you, because you've created a cage to withhold this thing that needed to be processed out. And there's this truth for a lot of us that we struggle through things that we don't tell other people, not because we don't want other people to know about it, but because we have internalized that we need to resolve our issues ourselves. So yes, we'll talk about heartbreak and how important and how big that is. But we need to understand that even in that, there is a grief that you need to grieve, that the person that broke your heart, or the person that died, or the person that left you, the person that whatever, that they have no power to heal in you. You are responsible for your healing. And I know that hurts to hear. I know that's something that we don't want to hear, because it's easier to pawn it off and say, well, they did this to me, so they need to fix it. They need to come and apologize. They need to tell me how bad it was, or how bad they were, or they need to do something. They cannot heal you. There is no person in this world that will heal you from your heartbreak. There is no person in this world that will heal you from your grief. And for a lot of us, we continue to remain in the same painful place because we think that our grief is ours to make home in, that is ours to stay in, it is ours to create in. I don't know what you have gone through in your life. I don't know the struggles that you're having, but I do know that the only way these things thrive and get bigger is by how we feed it. You either feed grief or you feed yourself. You feed your joy, you feed your love, you feed who you are. Grief was only going to be fed by how much it takes up. Now, I'm not saying, again, that it's not a real thing. I'm not saying that it's not a real struggle. I'm not saying that it's not something that you're going to go through and grow through. I am saying that it's something that you cannot let take over everything. You cannot let it be the problem. I heard it said once that you are not, if you're going through something, if you're depressed, don't dress like what you're going through. Like, don't come up and showing up the way that you think that you should be in that, because that's not you. You're taking a byproduct of something that's happened to you and becoming that thing. And we see, like, in movies, right? And it's such a common thing on novelas where they would sit there and they'd be so depressed and that they'll start just eating ice cream and bonbons and all these little things that are just terrible for them. And that is because it's a solace to them. It's a comfort that they become their pain. A lot of people are so heartbroken that they become their heartbreak. Like, they become everything that was said or done to them. They become the worst version of them because they're trying to internalize or compensate for what was said and trying to make it something that they could own. You are not your pain. You are not your grief. You're not your heartbreak. You're not the worst thing that has been done to you. And if you continue to live in that, you'll absolutely become that. It is impossible for us to not become what we repeat. If we're creating this place thinking that our heartbreak is our home, then we will always be that pain. We will always see everything through the lens of that hurt. We will always see the world through the lens of our wound. We will always see every person we encounter and deal with through that particular lens. And this is going to hurt and affect every relationship we see after. Because if we can only see things through our pain, then even the things that are joyful will look painful. If we can only see things through what was said or done to us, even the things that were sent to heal us, we will run from, because we will believe that they are the same as the things that hurt us. So there's this cognitive bias that we all share that's called loss aversion. And then what your brain does is that it tries to avoid anything that feels like loss. Like, it will try to move things around so that you don't have to feel that pain again, or so you don't have to feel that particular thing, so you don't have to stay there. What happens for a lot of us is that we take what's happened to us, and again, consciously or subconsciously, this is just sometimes it's not even your fault, but it is something that you need to reprogram and grow in. We will take what's happened to us, like a breakup, and we'll begin to blame ourselves. Again, consciously or subconsciously. You'll begin to use words like they left me, or I lost them, or it's over, it's heartbreak. We'll use all those things to justify what we're feeling, because it's easier to put the blame on us so that we avoid ever doing it again than it is to realize that it's not. Yes, you could partially be your fault, and maybe you made a mistake in something that you've done, but it's not your job to sit here and be the only person that fixes anything. It's not your job to run and hide behind those things. It is your job to confront them, right? To be conscious and aware of the things that you've done wrong. And if you did nothing wrong, which is hard to believe because we all play a part of certain things, but sometimes there are situations in which we're not the ones that are pushing for something. To be able to understand and accept that it's not your byproduct. You don't lose a person. It's not your loss. And this is one of those tough things to deal with, because when we understand that if we are willing to give everything to somebody, like if we're willing to pour in, if we continue to show up, if we are the best version of us, or trying to at the very least be the best version of us for them, that it's not our loss, it's theirs. And I don't mean like you are the best thing in the world, the hottest thing since sliced bread. I mean that if you are willing to love and pour and continue and to be this person that's going to give everything to this person, they're the ones that lost on you. And for some of us, we are so heartbroken by that we stop being that person. So what happens is that the next person that would have loved and reciprocated the same way that you were giving loses out on that version of you, because you've allowed heartbreak to be so deep and so in depth that you don't do the things that you were capable of doing in that previous one, in the one that it would have been fruitful in. There are people who have ruined amazing things in their lives because they are so hurt by something that was bad for them. And it blows my mind, because this is a process that we have to go through. Sometimes, again, we take those words and internalize them and say, we lost, we got broken up with. It's our heart that's broken. We take those things that was done to us and we make them ours. And now it becomes a part of us. And it's just insane to think that we would ever want to be happy when we're sitting in this falseness of us, in this falsehood of who you can be. Sometimes The reason that we don't move into something healthy is because we're still stuck there. It's because we look at the bad track record. We look at the bad relationships. We look at all the heartbreak and all the people that have led us wrong. And we look at all those things and we become that. And I just wonder how different life would be if the way that we looked at situations was by the situation and the person opposed to the history. Sometimes we don't heal because we are still hurt, and we remain in our hurt because we understand it. Because our brain, again, the loss aversion, doesn't want to continue to go through these things. So what it says is, this person reminds me of this other person, or this kind of love reminds me of this kind of love. Or what they're saying or doing or how they're showing up is too similar to how they showed up. We self-sabotage, a self-fulfilling prophecy. We sabotage the things that could have been good for us because we have been hurt before. Now, I just want you to keep that in mind, that not everyone is good or happy or perfect for you. But there are people who show up for you in different ways. And there's a guarantee that you will always find a problem. You always find a red flag when it's the only thing you're looking for. There's an old saying, I'm full of old sayings today, that says that if for a toxic person or for a person with problems, they will find a problem to every solution, no matter what, because one thing that you're looking for is the problem. You're coming into these situations, into these relationships, putting all of your past problems onto the new one. So of course it's going to fail. Of course, it's not going to flourish and succeed. Of course, you're not going to be fully invested, and your heart's not going to be all in, because you're not looking for the good thing. You're looking for the red flag. You're looking for the problem again. And with those lenses, with that view, with that look, you guarantee that you only find those things. The struggles of healing our heart only come at the expense of letting that other person die. Like, you will not heal. Your heart won't be back to what it needs to be. Your mind won't be back to what it needs to be if you are still living in that season. And I'm not saying it's easy. Again, I want to be clear and concise with those things, that we're not saying that this is an easy thing to get over, because it's not. This is why you're here listening, or you're just an awesome person and you listen to all these episodes and there's something good in there, especially about grief, which we'll come back to later. But there's something that has to change for us to be someone new. And we can't expect the version of us that we can be, the version of us that's actually meant to thrive and have a healthy heart and a healthy relationship and healthy friendships and healthy all these things. We can't expect that person to live and thrive and succeed if we refuse to leave. So there's a word, faith word, it's called discernment, and we use it in everything else. But discernment is so important, because I'm not saying, again, I said that we always look for the red flags, so it was fine. I'm not saying the red flags don't exist. They do. They absolutely do. And it's important that you are aware of those things. But they only exist in places that they're bad. Sometimes we're guaranteeing, we're looking for them to exist. We're guaranteeing that they're going to be a problem because we're looking for every single problem in everyone. And spoiler alert, if you don't know this, there is not a single person in this world that's perfect. You're not perfect. I hate to break it to you. Maybe I'm the first person that's ever said this to you. You're not perfect. None of us are. But what we can be is consistent. What we can be is hopeful. What we can be is changing. We can consistently be changing. We can hopefully consistently be changing. The reality is that we're not perfect, and neither are they. And when we're always looking for a person to be perfect, then we're not perfect. What we're doing is creating this paradox that we want something to come out of nothing, yet we provide nothing to that something. We create this thing around us that we think that everyone else is a problem and we're not. And what happens there is that now you become a problem because of a broken heart, because you stayed in a place that you weren't meant to, because you think that you are still your problems, because you think that that thing has to be avoided. The truth is that you can never have full love without full intimacy. And full intimacy means that you're willing to be hurt. It means that you're willing to put everything on the line. It means that you are willing to be that same heartbreak and that same pain in hopes that that person is who you can pour into. And we continue to struggle with this because we're still living there, because our hurt is more important to us than our healing. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. And the reason it's more important to you, it's because it's become your identity. Like everything that you've done or lashed out of or has come from that particular wound. And if that wound has been resurfaced and continued to be hurt in other places, then that's who you've identified yourself as. Don't miss on something that could be good for you, because you're still stuck on the thing that was horrible to you. You can't let go of the pain without letting go of the fantasy. And this is a big one. The reason that we don't heal for a lot of us, the reason that we don't get over or move on from someone that we loved is because in our brain, we are still in that place of limerence. We're still in that memory, that thought of what they could have been, of what the memory of what our kids would have looked like, of the house that we would have, the white picket fence, and all the story that we told ourselves. We now have to realize that thing doesn't exist. And there is a pain that happens with you letting that go. There is a reality that grief that we talked about before and that we'll talk about later, that grief that you have to feel has to be real. That you have to grieve not just them, but you, the person that you would have been in that relationship, the person that would have looked like, the person that you would have been around. You have to now grieve this possibility of just who they could have actually grown to be with you, and know that it's not your fault. Yes, it's going to hurt. It's not like it's going to feel good to grieve something, but it's going to be the most powerful thing you do. A lot of people don't heal from this. They don't change from this because they've never grieved it, because they've never truly let go of that thought, because they still live with the thought, the memory, the limerence of what that could have looked like. And it's impossible for you to become that next version of you, again, still stuck there. Sometimes you need to grieve that relationship. Grieve that person that's no longer there, whether because of happenstance, because of life, the world, because of things that were out of both of your controls, or whether a decision that they made, whether something that they didn't feel comfortable in. I need you to understand this too, that some people don't heal because they keep thinking that they're not good enough because someone else left them. You could be the greatest person in the world. Hear me on this. This is very important, because you can be the greatest person in the absolute world. You can offer everything and show up every single way and still not be right for them. And it has nothing to do with you and your quality and who you are and what you bring to the table. It has everything to do with them, where they are, how they feel, what they're struggling with, what they actually want. Your worth and value is not dependent on someone else's seeing or understanding of it. Who you are is not dependent on what they felt or what they didn't feel. You have to stop thinking that the only way you'll be happy is if someone else sees it. At the end of our lives, the only thing that will actually matter is not how much someone else loved us, but how much we loved. How much we loved God, how much we loved our neighbor, how much we showed up for people, how much we poured into. And it's going to hurt sometimes because we want to be poured back into ourselves. And you deserve that. But it doesn't mean that your love or your value is dependent on it. Just because you deserve it doesn't mean that it's depending on it. The truth is that we have been taught that our value and our worth is only seen on how other people see us. And we live that world now even deeper. So of course it becomes really hard to get over heartbreak because your first thought is, man, why didn't they love me or see me the way I saw them? Of course it's hard for you to finally love yourself when you think that the only reason anyone can love you is because you do something for them. Of course, that you are dependent on that because we think that the reason that people aren't choosing us or staying with us or being present to us is only dependent on our value. It's not what they see, it's who you are. And until you heal that, until you understand that, you will never fully understand love. You will always be heartbroken when someone else has to do what's right for them because you think that their love invalidates you or their lack of love invalidates you. It doesn't. There's this practice of no contact, and I think it's a huge one. It's an important one because what happens for a lot of us is that we're still repeating cycles with people. Like we're still reading the old text, we're scrolling through their social media, we're looking at their photos, we're playing memories, watching videos, thinking about all the sweet moments and all the sweet nothings. And what happens is that you make it impossible to heal. Your brain doesn't know any better. You're going back and repeating that. You're going back and just sitting in those things of what could have been. You are sitting in those moments and just think that this thing is going to be fine just to watch. It's going to be fine just to reach out. Now, I'm not saying you have to be perfect, right? Sometimes we struggle with this. But the longer that we can last outside of that, the easier it becomes for us to not revert to it. And I hate to say this. This is probably the worst advice I've ever heard and the worst advice that I'll ever repeat. But sometimes you need to have your heart broken enough for you to stop going back to the thing that keeps breaking it. Sometimes you need to sit there and realize, man, why do they keep treating me this way, acting this way? Because then you'll eventually realize that it's not you. You're the one going back to it. Yes, you're the one perpetuating this by putting yourself in a position to receive that again. But the reason they're acting that way is not because you don't deserve love. It's because they don't know what they're doing. Or it's because they're broken. Or it's because of their problem. Or it's even the simplest thing ever that we're just not compatible. We might have a lot of similarities, but similarities that do not equate compatibility. You could be compatible with demons. You could be compatible with the worst things in the world. It doesn't mean that you should stay in something just because you have some level of compatibility. Just because you guys like the same thing or have the same type of entertainment or hobbies or whatever, that does not mean that you are actually meant to be together. And we'll keep breaking our hearts. Our hearts keep getting broken until we learn the lesson that we're not supposed to stay there, that it's not aligned with purpose. You don't need a pretty partner. You need a purpose partner. You need a person that's not compatible with you. You need someone that's actually striving to be better with you and striving better for you, not just because you guys like doing the same thing. It means nothing to enjoy the same hobbies if you're not enjoying the same heart. And we'll struggle with heartbreak with these people because we see so many things in them that are similar to us. So we want this mirror to work, but this mirror doesn't work the same way. It's flipped, it's inverted. You're looking at someone that probably has a lot of things similar to you, but don't actually have the things that you desire. We've confused compatibility with purpose, which is why a lot of us are so heartbroken. Because when you're outside of purpose, you're not outside of something good. And we keep going back to these people or these places or these kinds of people because we see the familiarity. And it's beautiful to have that. I don't want to dismiss it. It's nice to be able to enjoy the same things with certain people and be able to just not have to question what they're going to eat or how they're going to act and all that. That's really good and really important, but it's not the deciding factor as to what you should do in the relationship. It's not the most important thing. We keep reverting and replaying those things. So we can't heal from the things that we keep going to. Our brain keeps getting the same hormones, keeps getting that memory, and it makes it tighter and more connected. The truth is that you don't miss the relationship. You miss the highlight reels of it. Like your brain, again, your wonderful brain, which it loves you. I promise you it does. It's trying its hardest. It's trying its best. But it keeps playing. Your memory sucks. Like if you don't know this, the human memory is horrible. The best part of your brain, the olfactory, right, sensors in the front of your brain, so your nose and your mouth and actually your ears too, are the best sensory for memory. Actually, just period. The best memory composite for your brain is your olfactory nerve. So it's cranial nerve that takes everything, right? Your scent is the best thing you ever have. But everything else sucks. Like it's really, really bad at remembering things. So what it does is that it compartmentalizes certain parts of the memory and it just plays back those parts. So you are remembering a memory of a memory that seemed really good, but you don't actually remember what it was like. You don't really remember it itself. That's why we can't really trust our mind. It's only replaying certain sections of it because it's something that's used to. It's something that just seems joyful. So we ignore everything else around it to focus on that thing. But I want you to focus on the opposite. I want you to focus on the bad. Remember the bad. Give yourself a recall of the bad. Give yourself a place of that because that's what you need to focus on. It's called the rosy retrospection, right? That's the word. Yeah, rosy retrospection, where you only remember the happy portion of the thing. So what happens is that you focus so much on those memories that's what you remember that relationship as. That's what you remember that heartbreak as. And it makes the heartbreak worse. Because now you can't heal from this thing because you're still ruminating over the same exact situation. You remember the joy. And your brain is like, oh, but look how happy you were in that moment. But you ignore the fact that they treated you poorly. You ignore the fact that they didn't really care about what your emotions were like. They really didn't show up the way you needed them to. You focus so much on the good that you ignore the bad. And it's hard to heal when the one thing that you're focusing on is the one thing that isn't real. After our getting over somebody, after the heartbreak, the best thing that you will ever do is reinvent yourself. And I know that's like cliche, and that's like a standard thing that a lot of people say is like, oh, well, you got to become the new version of you and this and that and the third. And, I actually agree with this. I actually believe that you should be a new version of you because that version of you that was in that relationship doesn't exist anymore. That version of you that said yes to this, that version of you that was stuck there, that version of you that even was just growing in that isn't who you are today. It's not who you are right now. So adding things to yourself, moving on from, and this is every relationship, right? Not just romantic or platonic. I think sometimes we get really stuck on this, that we think that every relationship is just a romantic one. But careers, college, school, your family members even, getting out of certain relationships with those people, you still need to reinvent yourself because, again, it is not who you are now. And for a lot of people, pain should be a catalyst. It should be the reason that you change. That thing should be what propels you forward. Reinventing yourself will be the most powerful thing you will ever do because it will never allow the people that had access to you in those seasons to continue to have access. It won't allow the people that made you feel the way that you felt. It won't allow the people that made you tolerate things you tolerated. It won't allow the people that thought that you can get away with what they got away with from you. It won't allow those people to even have access to you. When you reinvent you, it just stops all this nonsense. And as we talk about grief, the grieving of yourself, of who you used to be, of who you were in those situations, you have to grieve that person too. You're no longer them. You've grown or died away from that. But that's not who you are anymore. For a lot of people, again, they won't grieve that person because it's easier to still hang on to that pain, to remain there. The goal isn't to forget them. It's to outgrow the version of you that needed them. The best version of you no longer needs to continue to go back to these places. And there is just something powerful that happens when we learn detachment, when we detach from how we felt or how we thought we needed them or how we thought that they made us feel. Something powerful happens when you are aware that this breakup isn't the end of your story, but it's the birth of something new, that this transition period isn't where you are stuck in, but it's what you're moving into, that this version of you that's going further and going deeper isn't caught up in what they thought you were. So thank you again for being a part of this episode, for listening to this podcast. I'm always eternally grateful, and I'm so grateful for all the people that reach out and all the messages and conversations and wherever we can. I'm just beyond grateful for that. And I really hope that there's fruit in this, that it's not just something that you listen to and somehow my voice is soothing to you, which is awesome if it is, great, but that there's fruit in this. Oh, the whole thing, the 5 stars and download and share with a friend, because that actually helps. So if you could do that for me, that'd be awesome. But other than that, thank you for being on this episode, and we'll catch you